I was muted. I am so sorry. Welcome and thank you all for joining us today. Again, my name is Quinn Johnson, no preferred pronouns. I am the co-founder and director of arts education for Soul Defined Percussive Dance Company, as well as a nationally credentialed teaching artist, performing artist, and children's book author. We are reflecting on the violence against Black bodies that have taken place both recently and historically in this country, as well as the embedded white supremacy in our dance and arts community. In alignment with Soul Define's mission, it is essential for us to be visible and vocal with the community at this time. And as we begin, we first want to take a few moments of silence to honor and acknowledge those Black lives known and unknown that have been assassinated by police brutality and hate. Thank you. Soul Define welcomes you to this solution-oriented conversation from what is known as the Washington, D.C. region, which is occupied, unceded territory, the ancestral homeland of the Powhatan, Pamunkey, Piscataway peoples, and many more whose histories have been erased. We acknowledge that the foundation of this country was funded by the sale of enslaved Africans and built by their forced labor. We welcome your voice and your questions to this conversation, and you can leave comments or questions for the panel in the chat as you watch. Thank you to TRJ Bridges for providing the ASL interpretation for today's conversation. And I would like to introduce today's moderator. She is an amazing friend, artist, activist, Miss Aysha Upchurch. She will be leading today's conversation. Hey, Aysha.
Hi, Quinn. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this amazing opportunity and discussion. I've been a longtime friend, colleague, and supporter of Quinn, of the Dance Place, and so I'm excited to be here. Again, my name is Aysha. I do take the she series pronouns, and I am here to try to hold my seat and help us guide this time with an amazing group of panelists, of performers, of activists, of artists today. I am joining you all from the third floor of a multifamily in Beantown, Boston. I am on land of the Massachusetts and Wampanoag people, amongst other tribes and histories that have been erased. I am the daughter of Marcia Denise Washington Upchurch Staples and William Donald Upchurch. And I'm an artist, I'm a dancer, I'm many things. But because we have so many things to get to, I don't want to bore you out about who I am. I like to begin by introducing our panelists for today. So we have joining us today, Gianni Clarkson. And we have, Gianni, do you want to introduce us briefly to your awesome work and who you are?
Hi, my bio is really easy. I am humbled to be on the screen with two amazing women, and this is where I stand, and this is where I will always fall. So thank you both for this opportunity. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Gianni. We also have Jamaal Blackroot Collier joining us.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depending on when you're watching this. It's an honor and a pleasure, as well as a privilege to be sharing the virtual space with you all.
We also have Emma Sarfaty.
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here learning with everyone today.
And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Vanessa Jackson, also known as Dr. J, the real Dr. J.
Or Mama J. So most importantly, I'm Ryan's mom, and Quinn is my daughter. And I want to say thank you so much to Dance Place and Soul Define for having the space to have critical conversations about current issues. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for being here, wherever your here is. And for those who are watching, we are glad to have you with us again in this conversation. So I guess we should just try to get started. I am going to be note-taking, never get distracted if my eyes are not forward. I'm trying to hold on to what I know will be gems, nuggets of wisdom. And so I want to just start us off, if folks can take a moment to answer this question as it pertains to your practice and your experience. Well, how do you all define arts education's role and its purpose in schooling and society? So what is the role and purpose of arts education as you all see it? And I don't know, we didn't figure this out. We're keeping this real. Whoever feels like starting, I guess you can signal with the hand and now we'll identify you. Okay, Jamaal.
I'll go ahead and kick it off. I've always been at odds a little bit with the term arts education, or more specifically arts integration. And sometimes that seems to provide a misnomer of you believing that art and education are separate. And they never have been. As somebody who's an educator, not just myself, but anybody who's an educator, if you're a griot or somebody who explains information to somebody, you're an educator, right? If you have a craft, an artistic craft that you model and you beat on and you practice and you master, and you have an ability to show that skill to others, you're teaching, and you're teaching your art, and you are not integrating your art. It's always connected. It's never separate. To me, it just seems like a new buzzword that people have been using for the past 15 years, kind of like, oh, well, this will lower your cholesterol. It's a superfood. It's this, it's that. These things have always existed. Just because we put new titles on them don't mean that they're new. It just means we provided new titles. Like, I think that sometimes in this society, for business and finance purposes, we find ways to pseudo reinvent the wheel without it being a sturdy wheel in the first place. So that's my 17 cents on that.
Thank you. Dr. J.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that. I think art is everywhere, and you have to start learning from that point, or that looking through that lens. So when I think about art, I think about the computer. You know, designing a computer, that's art. Designing a car, that's art. The way that we decorate our houses, the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we wear our hair, all of it's art. So it shouldn't sit in a silo on the side. It should be embedded into the curriculum as a norm. And that's what we need. But I define art education as a space for students to think critically and create works of art that are aligned with their cultural experiences, backgrounds, values. And I think that the art should really, or education, I'm going to piggyback on that. Education is helping students to understand their own cultures, the cultures of other people, but also what the arts do that makes it so amazing and special is that we help others tolerate cultural differences, which I think is a blessing. And I'll end it with that.
Okay, Gianni, hop on that. Yeah.
So like I immediately think of a track by Common called They Say, right? And on the track They Say, it opens up with John Legend singing this hook. And the hook goes, we say the facts and then they lie. I think that what arts education does is it allows for us to tell the truth and to really say what's actually going on. Oftentimes, which is stuck inside of curriculum, are this needless building of facts so scholars can pass standardized tests. But unfortunately, what it does not allow to have happen is for scholars to pass the test of life. So this is where it becomes extremely difficult for the creatives or for scholars to have a safe space where they're able to create and do these things that I feel are very important. When inside of arts education, what you're consistently building are newscasters. When we think about hip hop, when we think about dance, we think about art, they're telling the actual news of the day, what's really happening. So once again, we say the facts and then they lie. But unfortunately, we're going to keep coming back for them. They just don't know.
They say.
They say.
Ooh, wee. Come on.
Emma, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone has said so many beautiful things, and I do agree that art is everywhere. And I think that we've kind of struggled with the definition of art for a long time, which has made it really hard for us to see that, especially in schools. And I think that art can and should really serve as kind of a way for our students to access content and curriculum that we oftentimes say that they can't access, or that might be too hard for them. And that really makes it hard for us to see our students kind of as able to do everything and anything, which they can do. And I think that we should be able to use, as teachers, I'm a public school teacher in Baltimore. I think we should be able to use all forms of art, or any form of art, for our students to be able to access all types of knowledge in the school where they might not always feel comfortable accessing it. So as Jamaal said, art is everywhere, and everything we do in school is art, but we don't always see it that way. And I think we, as educators, need to be providing our students ways to be accessing it more equitably.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm over here getting writer's cramp trying to track some of the gems that you all are dropping, and I want to pick up with something that I feel like is underneath kind of everything that I'm hearing. And as we are in the arts world, and I'm hearing, like, all of us, we're kind of the preacher and the choir, that arts are not invisible, they're everywhere. How do you all think, especially now in this new COVID responsive education world, and this kind of eyes wide open to, oh, racism really does exist world, do you think there's an opportunity for folks to really finally grasp that art isn't something so separate? Because guess what we couldn't go do? We couldn't go take in art the way that we normally do it. No movie theaters, no concerts, no dance classes, no all of this. So is there an opportunity for us right now, as the folks, as the artists, as the educators, to change the narrative around this deficit frame of arts and arts education and education? Is there an opportunity for us to flip the script right now? Gianni. Oh.
I yield my time to the brilliant public. I yield my time to the brilliant public school teacher from the city of Baltimore.
Thank you. You have the floor.
I think we've been talking the talk for a long time, and I think it's time for us to walk the walk. I think that we've been talking about arts integration or arts education, and we've been talking about anti-racist education and doing all of these equitable things for our students for such a long time. I think this is now the time that a lot of us, especially white teachers, are like, oh, wow, we really have to treat our students well, and we really have to give them opportunities to grow and succeed in their schools. And so I think this time of virtual learning, where everything is being flipped on its head, is a time where we can really look at school in a completely different way of, well, we are not in a classroom, or we might be in a classroom 50% of the time, depending on what district you're in. So what can we do differently, and how can students access content differently, and how can we show them success doesn't look one type of way in one tiny little box. And maybe it's not a test score, maybe it's not a number, it might look a different way than we're used to it looking. And I think we have to redefine a lot of things for ourselves so that we're okay with it looking differently, so that our students are also okay with it looking differently.
Absolutely.
I would say that more so now than ever, arts education has become even more important. We tend to forget that a lot of our scholars come to school to escape some very uncomfortable home environments, right? I can say this for a fact that ever since I've been teaching, I've had what I call co-worker kids. And this is what I mean by that. These are scholars that literally meet me at work. Like, my report time is 7 a.m. School doesn't technically open up to our students at 7:40, but yet they're still there. So what happens is that they use school as a way to release and get away from some home environments that may not be the best, or may not be the most conducive to what a young child should go through, or any high schooler should go through. So this arts education world allows for that release that kids are able to do inside of a physical building. Now that the physical building has disappeared because of COVID-19, the stretch is going to be of the arts educator. How do we make sure that we're able to convey and talk to our scholars in this arts platform through this little camera and this microphone? Because this is what helps to build dreams, to build self-esteem. Like, and if we don't have these dream building self-esteem moments, we're going to lose a lot of scholars by the wayside. Yes, I'm always concerned about the educational gap, but I'm also concerned about the spiritual gap that's growing inside of our scholars, which does not allow them to speak and explore a world. And now arts education has to be louder more than ever to basically stake our claim to ground that we're important, we're needed, and we're instrumental to the development of scholars.
Mm-hmm.
So this question threw me for a loop, only because I think more artists will appreciate artists' work. However, I think for the general population, I think the arts will get lost. And we have to keep in mind that online learning and these platforms, well, online learning was created for a specific student. It was a student who had good time management, a student who had language skills, an independent learner. They were self-motivated. You know, they were academically ready, and they had the technology, and they were prepared. So my heart goes out to the students, because I still can't figure out how they're doing this. How are they staying engaged? I don't know how teachers are assessing in a meaningful way and bringing real art and meaning to this online teaching and creating community. I'm still a little concerned that everyone is getting lost in this process. And I'll leave it there.
Mm. Wow, that's
that part.
Yeah, and I think, just to embody what everyone else has said, like, the question is, does our goal need to change? The goal has never changed, I don't think. I think if you're an artist, I think if you care about your community, I think the goal is to be a service to the children in our community. I don't think that changes. Now, what that looks like will definitely change. And I know, you know, as somebody on the front lines, like everybody else in this panel discussion, sometimes the issue is establishing value. You know what I mean? I think sometimes when we have students that we have challenges with, sometimes those challenges arise from the fact that they don't feel the fear of consequence, and they don't feel the benefit of success. So some of them don't care either way. So I think if we can establish value when we step into a classroom, I think that's key. So, you know, I think the objective for many of us as artists and educators and administrators is still the same, but this method is definitely different, you know, and I'll yield to everybody else and just concede that you all covered it. So I'll definitely fall back. But I think establishing value and conceptualizing how valuable they are before we even get to the value of what we're saying to them, because the only reason we're talking to them is because they're valuable. The only reason we're educating them and building them up and fortifying them is because they are valuable. So
my question is, if they're not feeling valued at home, you know, how do we then, do the work that we want to do?
I think that's the question.
I think it's a consistent pouring into. You know, our scholars come to us some of our scholars. Let me be very careful how I do this. Some of our scholars come to us very empty. They come to us with empty cups every day, and it's our job as the educator to fill them up. And we're filling them up with life lessons. We're filling up with self-esteem. We're filling them up with a lot of things that they might not be getting in their neighborhood or their school environment. You know, I say this all the time. It's hard to walk the footprints in the sand of the ideology of you going to college if you've seen nobody even walk on that beach before. Or better yet, it's hard for you to believe that you can live to a certain age when nobody in your community is of that age. So we're consistently finding ways to pour into our scholars. And we do this through arts and education because we know it takes some confidence to stand in front of people and to speak. And it also takes a lot of confidence to say, what I'm doing is so important for 2 minutes, whether I'm dancing, I'm drumming, I'm speaking, I'm acting. That takes a child that is able to do that knows that they're loved and they live in a parachute that even when they fall, they're going to be okay. So that's what arts education does, is that it's the ability to always know that you're going to be okay because you have that parachute of love. Hey, it didn't go well right now, but you know what? We're going to go back and practice. Hey, I trusted you to sing this solo because, you know, you're loved and everything else. So that's what arts and education does. So when we talk about value, that alone is valuable enough, because if without that, then what are we really building? We're building incomplete scholars.
I love that. And I want to, if it's okay on this fine Sunday, I would like to propose a provocation for the church.
Take your time. Take your time.
Churches in the United States. Congregants, let's go. So, getting real on a Sunday. So, Gianni, you said something, and this takes me back to what I heard from everybody's first response around, like, the arts are everywhere. And you said something else. Some of our students come to us as empty cups. I'd like to offer this provocation. Of course, there's a lot of scholarly perspectives on this, and I'm not going to get into like a bibliography of that, but let's go for a moment that maybe it's not that students are empty at all. Maybe it's that schooling has told them to leave certain cups at home.
That's right.
It's not that the arts do anything at all. That we have continued to operate from this oppressive and colonized mindset that if it in fact that is something that they do, it's too dangerous because it might put people in touch with themselves.
So, that part.
They're everywhere. And our children, even now, are engaging with them. If it's not that the arts are so special, and actually our students aren't empty, where are the problems in schooling? And what are our opportunities right now, since we don't return to anything as normal? What are the opportunities right now to find some solutions, even in this virtual space, where our students can go, I'm dope because I listen to Common and Cardi B, and that is an intelligence that the brick and mortar school never let me bring into the walls. That me loving on my body, my ethnicity, my race, my gender, I can love on that. Like, how do we take advantage right now in this space and say that maybe our students aren't empty, but since the school buildings are, how can we reposition how we think about who's empty and who's pouring what into whom?
Can I be
Thank you for saying that, Aysha.
Yeah. Because I actually want to be a nerd for 2 seconds. Can I get 2 seconds of being a nerd?
Just
here we go. Here we go. 2 seconds. Let's get it real quick. Work, Gianni. So Sir Ken Robinson has a study which is called the Paperclip Study. And inside the Paperclip Study, he has these kindergartners and he says, how many uses do you have for this paperclip? And when he talks to these kindergartners, these kindergartners have all different types of questions. How big is it? Does it have to be metal? Can it do this? Can it do that? And these kids come up with almost 500-600 different uses for the paperclip. And as the years progress from first grade, second grade, third grade on, the number of uses for this same paperclip, the same question, gets less and less and less. How come kids are receiving more schooling but becoming less creative? Where in the world does that happen? And that's where that push of arts education is so important, because we consistently beat on the ideology that if you know these standards, you're good. If you know these standards, clap your hands. And the truth of the matter is, no, you may know them, but it doesn't really build the character of who you are as a person. So yeah, you're right. Those cups have been told to be left at home because this standard and this standardized test is more important. And that's the conflict.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry. How are you?
I got Emma, then Dr. J. Well, y'all can fill it out.
Dr. J hasn't spoken in a while. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there is an anti-creative climate in schools now, where the arts, again, sit on the side and they're not embedded into the culture. But I think leadership, I think policies and practices seem to be at the root of this. And we need to be mindful that most teachers are prepared in their training to come into urban public schools through the lens of European American values and ideas and thoughts, as opposed to the other way around. So when someone applies for a job, they're just looking at their competencies within the artwork, not in their competencies on whether or not they can connect with the audience that they're actually working with. And do they know anything about the culture? Are they aware of the community? What's going on in the community? Have they sat with the people, had conversations? You know, all of that doesn't happen. And I think testing is also another issue where people are teaching to the test as opposed to trying to figure out, how does my student learn? How can I create a moment for my student to learn? That's the most important thing we can do no matter what.
I think for a really long time, we've been, for a really long time, forever probably, we've been considering ourselves as educators of the sole person who has the knowledge. I'm going to give you the knowledge. I'm going to fill up your cup, whether that be with knowledge or with social emotional well-being. And as Aysha said, we need to be asking our students, what do you have in your cups? And how do you want to fill it or not fill it? And how can you use what you already have in your cups to build upon it? So I think that really speaks to student-centered education. And I think this time of virtual learning, we can really build upon that, of asking our students from the computer what they would like to be working on and how they're going to work on it at home, because we don't have them face-to-face, especially since they're not in the classroom all day with us. We can't be standing in front of them in the classroom for 8 hours, giving them knowledge and filling their cups all day long. So how are they going to fill their cups at home?
Mm-hmm.
The resolution looks different for everybody on this screen, but I think, and those are methods. So I'll dig back into that. I'll dig back into my Malcolm bag, methods and objectives, right? So you have service is the objective. And I think sometimes we need to remember that we're good doctors, right? So we're good doctors. And if you're a good doctor, you're not trying to save your patient. You're trying to serve your patient so your patient can save themselves. Does that make sense? And I think in a lot of cases, you know, we speak about the savior complex, but we have to be very mindful that we're not manifesting it while we're speaking about others who have it while we actually have it, you know? And I think that it's very important to, just like you said, Emma, we're asking these students, you know, and just like you said, Gianni and Dr. J and Aysha, like, how are we servicing the community? What is our resolve to serve? How are we contacting the parents? How are we speaking to the parents? Are we assuming the worst? Are we expecting the best? You know, and if we expect the best, the other hurdles become less important. And I think Aysha said, I'm sorry, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Aysha, long A.
Aysha, my apologies. I had to make sure. I hate doing that, so I apologize. Well, I just like doing that. And I think it's very important, as Aysha said, she had said the word, when we get back to a normal. And I knew what she meant, but we have to be very careful about what normal means because the normal we've been experiencing has never been okay.
Right.
Like the normal that we have in education before quarantine started was not okay. The normal we have now was not okay. But if anything, like the question asks, we actually have an opportunity to help make it a better okay, because the fact that it's not normal in a way is actually good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I to be clear, I'm right with you, Jamaal, that absolutely. There is no return. You know, regression has never been part of progress. So even whatever we've cleaved to that was routine, there's routine and there's return, but they are not the same, right? And I don't think there's any way for us to return to that routine, and there are some opportunities here. And, I definitely am not the person who coined this, but, when we hear the school system's not working, education is broken, there's also like, it's not that it's not working, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was not designed for equity. It was not designed for everyone to see and feel their best whole selves. So it's working. The normal was working quite well, but piece by piece, year by year, the wizard was being revealed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 2020, I like to say 2020 is like the athlete that every coach wants, because it is relentless, it is creative, it doesn't stop, it's got tricks on the sleeve, but
it's hydrated.
It's hydrated, it is well fed, nourished. But in 2020's antics, it has revealed to us that we should not return to some things. I heard you say quite a bit, Dr. J, standardized testing, and also you, Gianni, has been a problem because it shifts the focus. We know this, teach to the test, right? And so what I want to, I know we have an amazing break coming up in a bit, but I want to offer this question for everybody to think about it and offer, in your experience, if we can be honest on the Sunday, how does arts education, because it is in part of this system that was founded on white supremacist ideology, how too is arts education, how does it need to be aware of the slippery slope of teaching to the test, of leaving standard kind of privileged ways of conceiving art in place? So how have you all experienced arts education also needing to interrogate itself, and not just be like, oh, arts education is what everyone needs, like it's some blanket thing? So what are ways in you all's practice that you have interrogated arts education is also something that can be reinvented and redone, and not the problematic normal? And all thinking.
I
got this.
Well, I'm pointing down. Bam.
No, I just want to talk about my my doctoral studies. So I was working for Arts Every Day and going into Baltimore City Public Schools and doing arts integration, teaching strategies for arts integration. And what I noticed, every classroom I went into, they had the same historical figures, Martin Luther King. And I went, I hit myself, wait a minute, do they not know that there are other famous or people that have done great, African Americans have done great work, or people of color, artists of color, or, politicians of color? I don't care. And so when I started doing my my research, my question was, do teachers have the disposition to respond? They have to have the disposition to want to connect to a student's culture and to leave their culture behind. You have to remember, we teach what we know. And if we teach what we know, then we can't blame anybody. We can just try to educate everyone. But when you're teaching what you know, and this is all you know, and the students are sitting in the classroom and they're thinking, well, we studied the same person from first grade up to 8th grade, so there must not be anybody else that we can really feel value, because we feel value when we see ourselves, okay, in places that we don't stand. Yes. My experiences, I saw this 40 years ago, because I'm the elder, okay, on the panel. I saw this 40 years ago. I saw it 30 years ago. I saw it 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And I said, when is it going to change? That's my real question, is when is policies and practices going to change? When are leadership going to step up to the plate and do the right thing and train faculty, Black or white, because it doesn't mean you could be Black and still not have a disposition to teach Black. Amen. Hallelujah. Ashe. But my point is that when are we, and I know it's a number game, Jamaal, I think everything boils down to numbers, okay? And but the numbers will get better if we do tap in to what's really meaningful for the student.
Agreed.
And the doors of the church are open, and the doors of the church are open.
Can you come?
And then I like how she takes the drink afterwards. Come on.
She did though. She did that.
Thank you. Like, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I would love to hear from everyone else. Like, again, on this, like, where are the places where you and your practice are even pushing for, advocating, or doing something to change us from these the problematic pre-time normal, pre-COVID normal?
Is it okay if I come? Is anybody else really itching to hop in there?
Come on,
we got it.
All right. I've been writing in a different way. The way I'm a writer by trade as well, and a performer, a host and a facilitator, and I love how our students can articulate ourselves. And I'll go back on that whole thing about being a doctor, right? So you as a person have the ability to heal yourself. Doctors are there to help you articulate what's going on with you, but all they're there is to help you articulate. That's what they're there for. They're not there to necessarily tell you what's wrong. You know what's wrong with you. You can feel it in a lot of cases, right? So, and that's an Eastern African, you know what I mean, philosophy. Like, I come to you as a patient. You're a doctor. You tell me what's wrong because I already know what's wrong. You're supposed to tell me how to fix it. Where are we going? You know, if it needs to be fixed, how can I add to it? How can I enhance it? You know, and I think that for me, one of the big things is literally, viscerally understanding that you have to start internal work first and show and model how your internal work is growing. And if that's growing outward from the inward, the students see it, because the students always know. They could always sniff out if you're being disingenuous. They could always sniff out if you're crafting a facade, and they don't even necessarily sometimes say, oh, you're being phony. They respond to you in a certain way because they can't connect with you. They can't recognize you're real because you're not connected to the source the way you're supposed to be. And I think that that's an interesting thing. And I think that it's so much, and I'm really trying to stay focused. I don't want to go off into a bigger tangent. But if you're saying it's okay, I might just do that. But seriously, I think that we have to really focus on paying attention to what we're bringing to the table to make sure that we can be honest, you know. And one honest thing I did was I approached some of the nonprofits that I work with and got to them very real. I just said, these are some of my thoughts. And a lot of times as an artist, there are a lot of parallels between being an artist in general to being a Black person in America. Even when you want to address a wrongdoing or a grievance, you're already prepared to couch it in a way that's innocuous in its presentation. You might even giggle a couple times or throw in some type of comedy to soften the blow of the reality of you being disrespected, you know? And I think that in this time, a lot of us are being more authentically unapologetic to the system that exists. And we're unapologetic, and there's a level of confidence behind us not being apologetic, as opposed to saying, I deserve credit for this lesson that I created.
Yeah.
And it should not go. It shouldn't be shared with everybody without you saying, Mr. Root or Jamaal Collier did that, or Gianni did that, or Dr. J did that, or Aysha did this. So this is a lesson plan that I got from Gianni. This is a lesson plan that I got from Aysha. Not know, oh, this is a new lesson plan. This is going to be great. And we're going to do New York math. Nah. Who's New York? New York isn't a person. Who made it?
Yeah.
You know
I think that's so key. And I think we have been brainwashed. We have been made to think that erasure is okay and non-acknowledgement is okay. From not being able to acknowledge lands that we're on, to not being able to acknowledge that slavery was slavery and not some strange immigration policy for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's insidious. And I think being in academia, it's very crazy because you can be threatened to be kicked out of a program for plagiarism. Yet we live in a society, and I think that's how white supremacist ideology works, is that it thrives off of plagiarism, off of erasure, off of co-option and appropriation. So if you can get kicked out of college, not get your degree for not citing on your paper,
come on.
Let's get people ready and let's give them tools to make acknowledgement like blinking, right? And
yes, indeed.
that's with anything in a scholarly text as well. And I think particularly as artists, our intellectual and our creative property.
Please.
So cite where you're getting the choreo, cite whose bars those are. You can't be like there's no ghost citing. Those are either your bars or they're not.
That's right.
Cite who's the drummer, cite who's the backup vocalist on down the line. It's not sweet and sexy to do right now. Cite who started the TikTok dance. There, I said it. So I think you all what I'm hearing is like us starting to crack this nut by really embedding a practice of acknowledgement, and that does take honesty, radical honesty with self.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
No. I absolutely believe that. I believe that.
I'm getting hot. I want to say some more stuff. I'm getting hot.
What do we? Wait a minute. The keyboard said E flat. Right there.
I'm not going. Sorry, this just how we. I know I do want to be mindful of time. I know Gianni and Emma. We haven't heard anything from you all on this, and I'll see if anybody pings me to pause now, or to pick up, or to hear you all finish, and then we'll kick to a little break. But any quick insight for you all as well, like how can we start putting arts education practice into a liberatory space and not go in with the erasure Olympics? That's a prayer phrase and a rephrase, but y'all got it.
No, I think it's taking the time to show the evidence that it does work. And this is very important. So a couple of years ago, I was in charge of teaching a class called Park English. I didn't know what Park English was, and neither did the people tell me that I was going to teach Park English. But what I did know was that I was going to take this time to explore great Black theater. And we had an incident inside of my school community, and I was very disappointed in how my scholars handled it. So I said, we're going to read Zooman and the Sign. And my scholars are from an ideology of that, snitching is bad. Like, you're not supposed to be out here snitching. Where Zooman and the Sign is a perfect play that puts together this Polaroid picture of a father whose daughter is lost in a neighborhood shooting, and everyone sees who shot and killed this man's daughter, but nobody's brave enough to say anything. And then I started to have scholars ask that question, well, how would you feel if you're the father? And you have to deal with the fact that because people aren't brave enough to stand up in the community, you're actually making the community worse. And what that did was it started to peel back layers of character. And this was done through the arts. So the response was of the scholars is, hey, I walked into this story feeling one way, and now I've left and I feel a totally different way. That's the evidence of what the arts can do. The arts are the passport to the heart. Though, everything that we do inside of academia is great because we're having students learn and learn capacity, but who cares if you're this brilliant person, but you have no sympathy for your fellow man? Arts is a passport to the heart. It would disturb me that our 4.0 valedictorian has never been around or want to touch the hem of someone that they thought was lesser than due to financial situations or homeless situations or any type of handicap. And I think that what it does is arts in general humanize us. Because people are becoming less people. They're becoming more programmed. And especially as we live in this digital world, we're turning into these very weird programs. We cancel everything, we fail to understand everything, and we want no part of anything that is different. The arts are the passport to the heart. And it's our job to continually break down borders and allow people to visit other parts of the country where people aren't like us so that we can become a better us.
Beautiful. I love that.
So I know Dr. J said that she's waiting for real policy change. I'm assuming at the state level, but also from administrators. I guess, I mean, I think we all have for a long time. I guess I feel like it really has to start with teachers and with educators, because I feel like it's just not going to happen. And maybe that's me being kind of pessimistic. I don't know. But I feel like we as teachers and as educators just have to say, okay, I'm just going to do it. And I know that's really hard. And I hear it from my colleagues. I hear it from people I have conversations with of like, well, I have to stay on track. I have to do the curriculum. I have to be on this lesson. And that's a real thing that we deal with every day. But, and this, I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who teaches English as a second language. I have a little bit more flexibility in what I get to do with my students, but I think we just have to say, this is what's right for our students. I'm going to teach this way. I'm going to center their voices. This is how they want to learn. This is how they learn best. And then take that to your administration of, my students learned this way. I incorporated X, Y, and Z, these art forms. They loved it. They were able to teach the class. They were able to master this skill, master this content. So let's make this a school-wide thing that we do. I think it has to start with the teachers. I think we all have to get on board. And I know we have to stay on pace also. So we have to find that balance.
It's a beautiful point. I think sometimes one thing, little nugget I'll leave folks with on that part is this. I love this push for policy. And I know sometimes people have an adverse reaction to policy because we're made to think that that is something that exists above our heads. But policy and systems are made of people, and everybody is a policy maker, actually. People apply for jobs to enact things for us. Those are politicians, but policy, we are all policy makers, and policy affects everybody. So I love that point that it is going to have to start with us and not the people on a hill or in a white building somewhere. So thank you for that provocation. We are going to, y'all don't go nowhere because y'all are for a treat. We have some guests coming up, and I'm going to let Quinn take us to the bridge.
Oh my gosh, I had to stand up for this conversation because you guys are dropping so many jewels. I couldn't sit down and watch it any longer, and it just makes me it makes me excited, but it just makes me think about the respectability of arts education amongst teachers and staff people. But we're not gonna get into that conversation right now because we're gonna get into an artist spotlight. And today we are spotlighting Farafina Kan, which literally translates as the sound of Africa. Farafina Kan is an intergenerational professional performing arts company dedicated to maintaining and enhancing the history, integrity, and representation of traditional African drumming and dancing through high quality performance and professionalism. And Farafina Kan is a family of young artists who have been reared and engaged in West African performing arts for the majority of their lives, led by two brothers, founder and artistic director Maheri Fajiman Keita and managing director Diallo Sumbri. Along with other brothers, sisters, cousins, and children, Farafina Kan is taking traditional West African drumming and dancing to new heights. Whether performing traditional rhythms, songs, and dances, or seamlessly fusing traditional rhythms and songs with contemporary arrangements, Farafina Kan always rocks the house. And I can say that as an actual company member. So Farafina Kan specializes in a myriad of performance and workshop formats that can include their full ensemble or a select cast, from theatrical concerts to outdoor performances to a series of school performances and residencies for any age. Farafina is the choice for you. So without further ado, we would love to share with you our artist spotlight for today, which is Farafina Kan NextGen.
Greetings. I am Mahiri Fajibakete Edwards, founder of Farafina Kan.
I am Ajay Keita Edwards, the director of Farafina Kan NextGen.
Farafina Kan is a professional, intergenerational West African drum and dance institution. Through in-studio classes, workshops, residencies, and performances, we maintain the history, traditions, and cultures of West Africa.
Farafina Kan NextGen is an ensemble of artists who are dedicated to continuing the legacy of artistic excellence and cultural integrity within West African dance and drum. Our studio is located at 3802 34th Street, Mount Rainier, Maryland. You can also look us up at farafinakan.com, as well as Instagram at Farafina Kan and at Fada NextGen, where you will stay alerted to our up and coming projects.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Soul Defined, for your consistent advocacy, dedication towards African American artists and arts education.
Hello, everyone. I just want to welcome everyone back. I am not going to hold up the conversation. I'm just going to let you all jump right back in.
Where I know. I have 3 pages of notes where my hand is trying to keep up with all of the gems and the quotes I went to go look for my passport on the break to see if it would indeed make sure that it always lets me go, if it was an arts passport, because I can't use the other one right now to go nowhere. So best passport is the best travel plan we got. You better preach that sermon, Gianni. So
stop that.
As we are continuing in this really rich conversation and exchange, I want to ask, I want to offer up to our amazing panelists, and feel free to take a minute to think about this, right? This is a solution-oriented conversation. And I also like to say, when I'm in these kind of spaces, that one of the tricks that people can get boxed into is like, well, tell me one thing to do and I'll do it, and then I'm free and I'm liberated and it's all good, right? And so I am ever aware of checklist-itis, and I think it's very important, as I preface this question, is that it's okay to have a checklist if the checklist is not like just doing activities, but if it's a checklist to help you build better mindsets and frames and ideologies around what is education, what is equity actually, instead of just trying to have a very surface, transactional, I could regurgitate a definition to you kind of understanding. So wanted to put that out there for folks. And I'm certainly not encouraging listeners and viewers, when you hear folks talk about things that they're doing in their sandbox, in their space, not to rush to go, oh, well, I think I'm going to just go play that common song that Gianni was talking about and that'll fix everything. We are not trying to checklist our way to transformation. We're trying to build habits of equity, habits of really transformative arts education. So I want to ask folks if you could give us each a day in the life of your classroom, of your organization, and how you highlight and center equity in their work. What does a day look like? And we can be honest around like what might be a hurdle in our day and how you even navigate that hurdle. But I'm wondering if you can offer a window of insight to us around a day in the life of your practice and how equity is centered in your arts education role. And feel free to take a Jeopardy melody preparation.
What the question is.
He got questions, y'all.
What happens when you put people on the Zoom? This is StreamYard. Are you listening? Don't hold it against me. I've been in Zoom too long. So yes, if anybody's feeling ready to give us a snapshot of a day in the life of your work and how equity shows up. Also, this is me giving you more time for us also to realize that censoring equity, censoring justice is not about these really big, bright poster board moments. So I think people are also sometimes like, oh, so if I have people watch that one documentary, what are the like habitual things that you do, right? So people can also make sure we're not like trying to just make it a big poster, right? Yeah, Jamaal, I saw you. Go ahead.
I was trying my best, and I was like, nobody's gonna hop in. I didn't know. Oh, Dr. J got the tea. So Dr. J, if you want to go, you already know I got to sit down because I messed up, and I apologize to everybody. I should have deferred to asking Dr. J if I had permission to speak, and I did not, and I apologize for that. It's all right, okay, but I wanted to make sure it was okay, and I think, actually, what I just did is an example. When you mess up, you should just say that, And I think we were talking about, cancel culture a little bit before we went to the break. And I think that people are afraid to, some people, because I don't like speaking in absolutes, some people are afraid to change their mind once they get new information and make sense, because they feel that you have to stand on your platform of something that you said. But sometimes what you say isn't necessarily your intentional platform. Sometimes what you say is something that you thought about that made sense to you at the time. And you didn't necessarily have all the information. So once you got all the information, you're like, oh, you know what? That thing I said might not have made that much sense. My bad. Modeling that to the kids is important. I'd say a really big moment for me one time was I was with my son and I was driving him to school. And before we went to school, we had about like, I was really proud of myself. I was like 30, 45 minutes early. That never happens. I can speak in absolutes. That never happens. I'm never an hour, 30 minutes early to anything. So when that happened, I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and tackle some math with my son real quick. I think that'd be a great idea. For some reason, he and I haven't really sat with math probably in about a month or two at that time. And I remember how far he had gotten. So I was hitting him with where I remembered him being. But he regressed a little bit. And it's morning time. He was nervous. I'm his father. There are a lot of different elements that kind of put some things into it. And I was getting frustrated that he wasn't moving at the pace I thought he should have moved at. And I could tell he was starting to shut down. So then I backed off. And as we were driving to school, I was thinking about, wow, if I went harder at him, he might not like math. And I don't want my son not to like math, because math is like art is life. Your heartbeat is math. The way your blood moves, your lymphatic drainage system, all that, everything is math, you know? So I stopped the car and pulled over on the way to school. And I said, Jameer, I have to apologize to you. And he said, why? And I said, I was projecting how I wanted you to perform over exactly where you were. And I should have met you where you were at. And I apologize for that. And when I did this, when I did this with him, he's 9 now, but I had this conversation with him when he was 7. And in that moment, I thought, I was like, I don't think my parents have ever apologized to me. When I was 7, you know, and I know I was raised on some really good old school components, I feel. But there were some other aspects of old school components where if a parent tells you something, whether they're right or wrong, that's what they said. And you might know it wasn't right, but you don't dare say anything about it ever, really. And I think that some aspects of that are how some of us administer education. And I think that is something we need to re-examine. And I would say how you re-examine that in real time is an example of something we could use to move forward. Hopefully I didn't go too far around the bush to get that.
Thank you. No, I'm hearing be in real time. These are the real digestible nuggets, being in real time. Also, making apologizing not like a huge mountain and makes you less of a person. Right. Like just being available, being real. I think those are the nuggets, right?
Right. But that it's genuine, you know, because I think sometimes there's a lot of people like, oh, you're a jerk. I'm sorry I called you a jerk. But you still think the person is a jerk or whatever. Like, so let's be genuine when we're actually being contrite for something that may be amiss.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I think for me, because I teach history, I have no choice but to live in a world where I must be consistent about being equitable, right? And I say that because for things to be equitable, it has to be served early, often, and unapologetically always. Early, often, and unapologetically always. And what I mean by that is that whenever my scholars are looking at the history book, and as being someone that services scholars of color, they don't see themselves often in the story of the building of America. So I go, no. You are here, and let me show you who they are. Oh, yeah, I know about Dr. Martin Luther King. Yeah, that's cool. But let's talk about Diane Nash for a second. Yeah, that's cool. But let me talk to you about, you know, other people that are sick inside of the civil rights movement. Yeah, I heard about Paul Revere. Yeah, that's cool. But there's also Sybil Ludington, who actually wrote longer than Paul Revere and gets ignored because she's a 15-year-old girl. Like, we have to be very consistent about serving equitable education, because once again, as I said earlier, that if you don't see yourself inside of certain places, you don't believe that you belong in certain places. You don't believe that at all. You know, people of color have always been a part of the soundtrack of America, so much so that our music is so beautiful that they've done everything in the process to market it, package it, sell it, and then tell us that it does not still belong to us. It goes consistent with this very uncomfortable argument that how could a country love the rhythm of a color of people but do not want ever to listen to their blues? How dare you pick the rolls from the concrete but never wanted to be brave enough to hammer that concrete free so that other roses can grow? That's what equity is really about. It's about really taking the time to say, look here, I want to make sure everybody is good. I want to make sure that your story is told. Like, we need the time to say, hey, the Black, and it's funny because I just recently taught this lesson. We got to stop painting the Black Panthers one way. Okay? The Black Panthers are responsible for many government programs that still exist to this day. If you're a Head Start child, hey, thank the Black Panthers. If you're someone who has received any type of free clinical information because of the sickle cell anemia, hey, thank the Black Panthers. If you're a child that or you service anybody who has a 504 plan or IEP, when those people with handicaps stood in front of the Capitol building of San Francisco, it was once again the Black Panthers that were there. We got to stop doing this. And that's what real equitable is about. It's about telling everybody's story. All these notes on side of the soundtrack of America, that's what makes the song so beautiful. And we cannot deafen notes because we don't want the backlash that comes with them. And that's the problem with America right now. People are trying to turn down certain tracks, but yet they don't really understand the gravity of what they're doing.
Absolutely. Dr. J, Emma, what y'all got for us? I mean, this plate is getting full, but we got room. Let's keep eating.
Emma, did you want to go?
You can go ahead first if you got something.
Oh, no, please. I do have something, but I can wait.
All right.
Have patience.
I think for me, my biggest role in equity work, at least at my school, is constantly working against the deficit mindset. I teach English as a second language. I have really, really bright scholars. They're really, really dedicated to their education, and they want to learn, and they're so eager to learn. But I am up against staff and faculty. It's my school, but it's lots of schools. It's just the general climate around students who speak another language that they can't access what we're providing them, and that it's too hard for them, and that they need to be taken out of the classroom to learn something different on their own level. And I think that my equity work mostly at my school is pushing against that and saying, no, they can access this. How can we get them to that point? And that's where arts education comes in. That's where hands-on and experiential learning comes in. That's where STEAM education comes in. How can we provide them tools so that they can access the same content and same knowledge and feel confident doing so and find success in that? And they can do it. And I think constantly having those conversations with them so that they know that they can do it, because they kind of, especially with the older kids. So I've been teaching, I taught 4th through 6th last year. I was teaching little kids before then. And so they weren't in the same mindset, but the older kids start to realize like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not successful in this classroom. And so kind of reframing that for them of, you can do this, you can find success in the classroom. We just have to get you to the right tools. And what tools do you want? How do you want to access this knowledge?
That's so beautiful.
So since I'm an artist educator, but I'm also a leader, I want to speak from 2 different positions. So as an artist educator, I'm always trying to level out the playing field for everyone in my class. And so sometimes it looks like my system of grading may shift a little bit because I'm looking at the learning styles, how a student learns, what's going to work for one student, what's going to help one student learn more or even demonstrate their understanding of knowledge or skills. So I'm constantly, because discrimination has been a part of my life, because I'm an elder, I've been in places where I was the only person trying to make a difference. So I'm always trying to level the playing field. But grading, I think, when I'm offering different ways in which I can engage that student and they can demonstrate what they know, even if it's through a conversation. That's how I, use equity. The other thing is, I think my leadership role is to provide opportunity for other artists of color to get experience teaching a higher education, so that we can shift into higher education, because that seems to be where the lack is in my field, where there are not enough artists of color teaching in dance programs across the United States. The reason that they're not is because they don't have experience teaching higher education. So I see my role as bringing artists of color on campus as adjuncts, and then they can say they have experience, and they can meet that requirement and then apply for that job and then move into that position. So then they can make a difference, and they can hold a space for, students of color to come in and have real conversations about real issues, about real life. And as Jamaal always says, and Gianni and Emma, make life meaningful, make learning meaningful.
Beautifully stated. I really resonate with that focus on, because I've heard you kind of push forward, and also hearing Emma as someone everybody in the classroom, is for us to really be thinking about how are folks being prepared, trained, educated to be going into these spaces. And also to go, just because you're a person of color, just because you're Black, just because however you identify, does not in and of itself give you some type of pass that says you know everything and you've arrived on the mountaintop of confidence. Nor does it mean that that you don't have to learn anymore. So I know I work Harvard Graduate School of Education, I'm faculty there, and I have fun working with folks who are in the classroom, in administration, in policy, or looking to go into that. And I take it as a really good, true, and real opportunity to go, what can I do in the space of my course to get us to think 2 levels down, 3 levels down, and not accept the norm. So let's be as artists are right now, right? I think artists are super inventive researchers, scientists at all times, right? We just don't get our credit that way. But let's think the 5 of us around what are some things, since we're in an era where things are being redrafted, the way that people learn, the way that programs are being designed is really in flux and being re-envisioned. What's one way from you all's experience that you would want maybe a teacher prep program, or even a program that's placing teaching artists in schools? What's one thing that you would go, hey, let's try this right now. Let's make this pivot. Like, what's a pivot? If we were to be here and draft up our own 10-point plan to pivot, what's something that we would want to do in this moment, this space of opportunity, to redirect how training of educators going into these spaces can go and be doing something in the right direction and not putting us back towards normal? What's one thing that we can do for people going into those? What's one thing that we can try to put out there for people going into these spaces? Whoever feels ready.
I think
I look away for a second and I miss, if it was a hand, I missed it. So whoever feels ready, please jump in.
I'm ready. I think something that I have been trying to do more, and that I think that I would encourage new teachers and I guess new artists and new arts educators to do more, is just ask why about everything. And I think that goes for within conversations, but also in planning and in instructing. And with your students, like asking why over and over and over again, because I think we need to be questioning what things look like and why they look that way. So if you're looking at an objective, why is that the objective? Who does it serve, and why is it there? And how can we make sure that it's serving everyone? And I think if someone has a different thought than you, asking them why do they think that way? I mean, you're just going to learn more from them, and then they might still have a different perspective than you in the end, but you're just going to learn something else. I think that question can give us new perspectives, but I think it can also push our own thinking a lot.
Absolutely. And I like what you're saying, Emma, and I think about coupling that with something Gianni offered before the break, is asking that why in like a really genuine, I think it was Gianni, I'm going back through my 3 pages of notes, from a genuine,
Yes.
no, it was Jamaal, contrite place, and not the I'm clapping back at you.
Yes.
Why do you think like that? Ooh, I'ma cancel you. Ooh, I'ma call you out. You about to lose your job. It's a different way to call people in and invite them to why versus, well, why? But I think it is so simple and essential. And also, like, some of us have to be like, can you help me learn how to ask why in a generative sense, right? Yeah.
And I think it starts with yourself. And I know we talked about that before too, of a self-reflection of, why am I doing this? Why am I writing this lesson plan right now? Why am I incorporating this art form versus another art form? And why not both? So I think if you start asking yourself why, then you'll be more comfortable asking each other why in a genuine way.
Yeah, Jamaal.
I think, Dr. J, do you want to proceed? Okay.
No, you can go, please.
I think sometimes in order to proceed, like actually the question is asking, sometimes we can move with an and mindset more so than a either or mindset. And a perfect application of that is every 3 or 4 years, that's how the educational system rotates something without letting it go through fruition. And there have been some really good applications over the past few decades. Some of them have been really good. Some of them have been not so good. But one thing that has been consistent is that it hasn't lasted more than 3 to 4 years. So you never really get a chance to see how good it can be, or even how, and I don't want to say how terrible, but just moving with an and mindset. I think a lot of times there was a question I saw on social media the other day, and it was dealing with fatherhood. And somebody said, if you were a father, would you do this? And people were commenting, I think if you don't do that, you're not a good dad. Or if you did this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I think you can do that and you're a good dad. And I think you don't have to do that at all. And you're still a good father. It's an and when you apply that to the education system, there's so many different levels of differentiation that we have that work well with different types of students. So I think moving forward, those goals and plans and methods of those objectives should be administered the same way.
Dr. J, yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking this is a great opportunity using technology to bring everybody to the table.
Yeah.
In the past, folks would come into the community, conduct research, and then make a decision, and then base that decision on from the outside in, from the outside looking in. What I would like to propose is that people should really try to take a closer look and have real conversations about real issues that deal with education and come to the table and try to make some real changes. So again, I'm speaking from a leadership perspective that if we're going to have real change, that means, like Emma said, from the bottom up. So we have to have a model from the top down and the bottom up, and we have got to meet in the middle and have these real conversations, but we have to be valued and we have to be sensitive to other people and how they think and how they act and how they live, so that we can really begin to hone into what is good for every person. Not teaching from one size fit all. That's what we have to constantly move away from. And then, like Emma said, ask, why are we teaching that model? Why are we doing it? Are we trying to maintain and sustain a particular philosophy? Or can we now, with technology, bring everybody to the table, whether it's international, national, nationalities, ethnicities, sex, and have real conversations? That's what I would like to propose.
I love that. I think indeed one of the challenges in traditional schooling, at least in this country, as I've seen it, and even in arts education, is this still one size fits all. One canon is just teach this canon and bam, you're arts literate. Though that canon may not even reflect the students in the room and actually just might not even be the real truthful story about how that canon got started in the first place. And so inviting more folks to these tables, and the table can be metaphorical or like literally at the department table, what arts genres are not represented, what cultures of practice are not represented, what genders are not represented, what ethnicities, what ability levels, you know. And so I do think that this is a time we've got 60 million different types of virtual platforms that we can gather on. So the table, I think it is a good time for us to be at the table and to move away from one size fits all and interrogate what's been particularly wrong in arts education and the preparation of folks to go into classrooms that are either embracing or shutting the door to arts. Gianni, I know we lost you for a minute. Glad that you were able to get back on.
I was still listening perfectly, but
technology will let you be great today. So just want to offer that up to you, like someone who's in classroom and administration in different roles. What would you say or offer as like things to a nugget of encouragement or advice or practice to folks who are preparing teaching artists to come into schools, or for arts educators and educators getting trained to go into schools? What's one thing that you think we can pivot in this virtual time?
So I would like Dr. J said earlier, I wish this was a silver bullet solution where we would shoot it and it'd be over with and everyone would be happy. I think this is actually a 3-step move, right? The 1-step move is that school communities have to understand that arts education is important. And they have to say it with fidelity, and they have to believe it with their whole heart. After we've said it and we've all believed it and confirmed it with our whole heart, and this is why I say administration has to step in. I think that all unit plans, and if you're a teacher, you know where I'm going with this, that all unit plans must include an arts integration project moving forward, whether it be history, math, science, social studies, whatever it is. There must be an arts integration project included, and it must be also done with fidelity. All right. Now, this is where the third part comes in because it gets a little punitive, but I'm always for it. I don't want to be for it, but I know where that room is and I can be for it if I have to be, right? So what I mean by this is that we know that inside of teaching that a lot of performance is connected towards your paycheck, towards financing. And I believe that if you fail to do this as a school community or as a teacher, it should be connected to the funding of your school. Look, let's be real about something, and I'm going to make people feel a little uncomfortable, but just trust me. I called the Uber, get in. It'll be fine. The Montgomery bus boycott did not end because some white folks in Montgomery thought what they were doing were wrong. It ended was because for 381 days, the city of Montgomery, Alabama lost $3,000 a day, which in inflation in 2020 equals up to $28,725. So the city of Montgomery could no longer take the fact of acknowledging that 75% of their ridership were African Americans. I'm saying that once we realize that everyone realizes how important what's going on is happening in America in regards to arts and education, if you don't do it, it's punitive. If you don't do it as a teacher, it's punitive. Well, why? I don't think that's important. It's not on the test. Yes, it is. It's on the test of life. And in our school community, we build well-rounded scholars. Are you an instructor or are you an educator? Because in the school community, we need educators, not instructors.
Can I ask you a question, Gianni?
Sure.
Do you think that punitive mindset is rooted in white supremacy culture?
I don't think it is. I think it's rooted in what we need to do to get bills paid. I think that eventually what it boils down to for me is that if you know this is a checkpoint of how this new way of us educating scholars is going to be done, you either do it or you get out. Like, the thing about me is that I'm tired of negotiating with the terrorists of my life. I'm tired of it. Like, I'm tired of negotiating with I'm tired of negotiating with racist white folks. and telling them that you should do this compared to that. I'm tired of arguing back with men that are misogynist and going back and forth with them. And after I've tried to show you the ways of your heart and why they are wrong, the only thing that I'm left to speak to is your pockets. That's what I'm left to speak to. I didn't want to talk to you that way, but that's unfortunately how you understand it. Like when we think about cancel culture and how it's happening in 2020, these people that are getting caught doing all these outlandish things to people of color, they're not sorry. They got sorry they got caught. And they know that it's about to change their world financially. That's what it boils down to. Oh, that's not who I really am. Yes, it is. We just got to see who you really were because we're all reporters now. Stay cheese. That's what it was. So I don't think that it's rooted in white supremacy. I think it's rooted in a capitalist society, which is who we are, and the fact that if you do not make a checkpoint or hit a checkpoint as a job, you got to go. So I think that's what we have to do.
I like that provocation. I like your 3-point articulation, Gianni, and I like the provocation and the push from you, Emma. And I wanted to push something in there and to throw this out for another day, another book, another podcast. Stay tuned. Can capitalism actually not exist without white supremacy? Another day.
That's a good one.
For a moment, let's call it a constant, okay?
That's a big one.
Thinking around fidelity and perfection, and if we're asking for fidelity or perfection from our teachers and our students, and then if they don't meet that perfection, who is yes, money, but who is going to be at a loss at that point? It's going to be the students, because the teachers.
I think so. And with that, I wonder, just thinking about other initiatives that we've had that have been tied to, if you do it, then if you don't do it, you're a fail, and you go into this, and then maybe there's money and not, and the school loses money, you lose your job. I get that we have been indoctrinated to operate in that punitive system, and for a second, we can totally pick that apart. But I want to go to also what I hear you picking on, Emma, is to enact those first two parts. How do we do it without going with saying art says it is important with fidelity and really meaning it and walking it out, and then actually making it part of all learning so it's not a pull out on the side. So the other thing I think that's working, we have to be leery of is folks will try to checklist their way through it and do it in such a way that still is problematic. See, I mentioned dance, boom. I'm not a dancer, but nobody told me how to find somebody to support the work. So then when we offer these goals, how can we make sure we're still offering it and we're giving people support to do it in a way where we're not hamstring or minimizing that arts aren't something to just lop in? Because I think I would venture to say we have a problem with the actual practice of integration in this country. We thought integrating schools meant put a handful of Black people into a white school and leave all of the curriculum the same. We're still thinking about integration as lopping in. So how can let's run with this, make it integrated into everything. How can we do that in a way that is transformative and not still leaving in practice the problematic pedagogy of integration equal lopping it on? So how do we do this? How do we get Jamaal, Dr. J, how do we do this in a way that is holistic?
It's a tough one, because I see exactly what Dr. Giani is saying. I'm seeing exactly what Emma is saying. But what's interesting with what Emma is saying is that I don't think it's necessarily steeped in white supremacy. It's not that deep. I can see how you can make that connection, but it's definitely steeped in forcing a lack of authenticity on behalf of some of the educators. Ironically, that's already being done with lesser expectations of outcomes that I've noticed. Now, I'm a teaching artist, so I have the ability to have an ephemeral quality on a lot of students. So I hop in and hop out, and I love leaving those messages that sometimes last longer than some educators who see their kids and their kids are jaded by them daily. And sometimes, unfortunately, inversely, their educators are jaded by the kids. So when I come in and do something, that it might be missed on both of them. I know there was an example somebody said earlier where, I think it was you, Emma, where some people are underestimating their kids, underestimating their scholars. You know what I mean? I literally went to a classroom one time and I had them reading from a book. And one of the teachers says, "Oh, he's not." And it was an ASL class. And one of the teachers literally said, "Oh, he doesn't know how to read that." And I looked at her and I calmly said, "I want to make sure that he can read for himself in front of me. I know what you have seen, but I know sometimes when I step into a classroom, children will always surprise you, whether you've seen them do the same thing over and over again or not." And that's all I said, and I said that trying not to be like, "Look at here," what I'm saying? And I was like, because it's her classroom, I still have to respect home. I'm in your house. So I still got to be as respectful as I can in your house. Now, to tie into what Gianni was saying, I agree. Let's try to hit people where their pocketbooks are. And I know we're going to branch a little bit out of pocket from where we are, but still in the same pants, so to speak. Police brutality. Dick Gregory said, "You're not going to make somebody who is trained to hate or who was indoctrinated in hate to stop hating you. But if he knows that if he kills a black man or a black woman or a black child or a black niece, daughter, uncle, nephew, cousin, and he loses his life insurance policy, or he loses his pension, or he loses a portion of his insurance, or he gets doc pay, and he knows he's not going to get a desk job, but he's going to lose his or her job, that's going to make him think twice before taking the life of another person. Maybe even more than that, and that, that's a bigger overall issue where you have to worry about defunding the unions that they work for and trying to circumvent that. And I know that's a bigger issue, but we have to start somewhere. And I think that three-part statement that Gianni's talking about is a great start. And then hopefully that will also help to weed out some of the ingenuine teachers who shouldn't have been teaching in the first place or who have been jaded. Because to be honest, depending on where you are psychologically, teaching is not for the faint of heart. Being an educator, even in the best optimal circumstances, you get tired because you're human. You know what I mean?
That part.
So like, and I've seen it. Honestly, that's why I love going in and out of school. I'll be like, "Hey, everybody, I'm here for 3 weeks. And after that, I'm not seeing y'all till next year." All right. So any problems I have, I could kind of process those out. I could debrief myself. And then I'm going to other schools. So I'm getting a lot of highs and lows. So I'm getting that balance, and that's helping to keep me centered. I'm getting highs and lows with the students. I'm getting highs and lows with the administrators. I'm getting highs and lows with the teachers and some parents in some cases. And I think that what Gianni is going for is a higher level or standard of median than what currently exists now. And the only way to get people on board, and so not the only way, but one of the ways to scaffold people where they need to be is by letting them know that there's a level of financial subsistence that they're going to have to work towards to have a certain norm established, but a norm that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my bad. Hopefully I answered the question. I think we have to start, and we've already started. So I want to also add the narrative that when we're talking about these questions, people have already started, because the fact that Emma's here, the fact that Dr. J is here, the fact that Gianni's here, the fact that I'm here, the fact that you're here, Aysha, we've already started that narrative. So I think it's important to establish that we are working from the ground up now. These conversations aren't just conversations. They're backed by the active performances of what we're doing already. So we're adding to it. It's an and, and I really like to always bang that home and say that.
I love that and mindset.
Yeah.
Dr. J?
Yeah, so I want to say, I'm going to slip this in about capitalism. We look at it through the lens of white supremacy, but Whole Foods, guess what? Redefined it in a different way, where it's about building a community. So there are different models out there when you talk about capitalism. And I think Whole Foods and some of the other companies out there are generating funds to make sure they take care of the whole community, period. I'm going to answer this question through the lens of an institution, with first having a mission statement. I think the mission statement should drive everything, meaning the goals, the objective, the assessment, the teaching experience, et cetera. And we have to constantly go back to what is our mission. So artists sometimes, organizations may leave, may shift away from their mission. You have to go back to your mission. This is like what I do for myself every year. You know, that January thing we do where we come in and we're like, okay, so what I'm going to do differently this time, right? But there needs to be, the mission statement should drive everything that we do. And I think every teacher should have a mission statement that's aligned with the organizational mission statement, et cetera. So that, and the assessment should align with the mission. Everything should start with what is our mission and go from there. And then I think that we can have accountability then, because that's what we're talking about. We're like, how can we be more accountable? Well, if every decision that we make is based on the mission statement, then we, you know, and how we assess it, or how we build objectives, how we do units, what we practice out the classroom. So I often wonder how many people who are teaching don't know the mission statement of their institution.
And that's the conflict, right? So an appendix to this, to what I was proposing, is that I've seen how teachers are recruited, and it's actually one of the most, I'll say it, it's an aggressive verb, disgusting things ever, right? And this is coming from someone who loves the art. Wouldn't you like to work somewhere where you only got to work 180 days out of the year and you get summers off? That's how it's marketed. Yeah. So when you market that to somebody, you're not really going to get the best of a lot of people, because you told them the benefits package more so than anything about how difficult the work is, how you need to pour into the work, how there are going to be challenges where you're going to have to be a teacher and some days. When you're not, and I think that's the reason why the profession has the problems that it does, is because the real ones are the real ones and the fake ones can't live the same bushel. And we got to get, go ahead.
I was going to piggyback on you, because we need to ask the question, why aren't there more people of color going into education? And the reason is because, again, that criteria, just like I said, my role is to help people with MFAs to get into higher education, okay? So when are we going to help those artists who are highly qualified, and I mean highly qualified, okay, to teach in public schools? And that's where the policies and the practices need to be pushed to the side, et cetera. And there needs to be a track, a way in which artists who are highly qualified to teach within a population of students can get in, as opposed to hiring someone who simply meets the requirements, like passing the praxis. Amen, hallelujah. Okay.
I love that question, and I think, you know, as we start to get ready to pivot and open up questions from our viewers, and who have been following on YouTube and on Facebook, I love that question. Also, like the recruitment part. There's some who said we don't have, and also I think it's important. It's been said before, but it's important to say again. Simply being a person of color doesn't make you a better educator. There's a lot of ratchetry that happens. I think ratchetry can be colorblind. And so it's how do we, I think that we have to make sure we are trying to get people who understand, to your point, Gianni, what the job is, not what you might just get if you just make it through 180 days. Hats off to day in, day out classroom teachers. Like, there's not enough holidays that are given. There's not enough anything that is given for that. And I think we do need to talk about what it means to prepare people to go into this. We don't have a lot of teachers of color. Students are not seeing as many teachers of color, so they don't see what the profession is or can be. Then we have different type of credentialing processes. And I think from the higher ed side, I love hearing and seeing how you are working those levers for us, Dr. J, around creating more access and pushing back. as someone who works in the hip hop realm of things, having a PhD, an EDD, an MFA, an EDM, an MED, a BA, a BFA, a BS, or other types of BS cannot make you more ready to teach if you're actually one of the originators of the craft. And so also thinking about, I take it on as my opportunity inside of academia to push down some things and say, this person has the right to teach here. Just because somebody yielded 7 years of their life to go get a teaching degree and all these credentials doesn't hold a candle to the expertise in this people. So I think there's many levers that we can all be working on, and also making sure that we hold everybody to that. I was trying to write down, as you said, Gianni, to be consistent, to be unapologetic about the urgency and the actuality of needing to redefine what schooling and education can be so that it allows people to see their full human and humanized selves in a humanizing way. I'm looking to see if we have a question. Quinn, I'm seeing, may have a question, but before we get there, I'll just any thoughts on like to this question of like, how do we get the right people? And I also want to say this really quickly. We can make schools have to have arts integration, but they can do it really wrong by never actually engaging with the community and getting actual artists who are from the community in the door, because they're still looking for people who have some other type of credentialing. So I think we can make that push, but we still have to go, let's push back against the norms that have existed and get people in the space who should be there, who can relate to youth. People of different abilities, different ethnicities, gender, everything. Because we can do this wrong. It can look checklist. It can be like, oh, we have Taco Tuesday. Isn't that culturally, are we multiculturally aware now? Yeah, we hide our heads in shame, but we know that. And also for cultural institutions, if you're only propping up Black artists in February, if that's the only time that they appear on your calendar, congratulations, you're doing it all wrong. So like, how can we make sure people are trying to go about this in a better way?
I think I mentioned it a little bit before, but I think that we really do have to redefine a lot of components of education in order to accomplish arts education more authentically, more genuinely. And I think that involves redefining success. It involves redefining what the teacher's role is in the classroom. And it involves redefining what assessments and work look like in the classroom, because we can ask for teachers and schools to do arts education, but like what you're saying, Aysha, it's just going to become a checklist. I think, even if it's tied to funding, I think it will become a checklist of, we did a dance on Monday and next week we're doing a play, but we're also going to make sure we get those test scores up and everyone's on the right reading level. I think that success has to be redefined. And I think that this time that we're in is the perfect time to rethink what that success looks like.
Come on in, Quinn. Quinn's ready to hop in.
This has been an amazing conversation, and I love what Emma just said about redefining what success is, and I think we are on the right track to do that in a powerful way and to do it correctly. Thank you all again for having this conversation. Thank you to Aysha for moderating this conversation and just sharing all of your ideas and solutions and possibilities for making arts within the classroom a great experience for the entire school climate. My question is a fun one, and because of the specific climate and the very heavy time of protests that we are in, and I must say this is Ryan's question, and I always think it's great. And the question is, what would be on your protest t-shirt? Take a second to think about it. Put your finger on your nose if you have I'm just playing. If you have one. All right, Jamaal, what will be on your protest T-shirt? You're on mute.
And I'm black, y'all. And I'm black, y'all. And I'm blickety black, black, blackety black, because I'm black and I'm back. And it would have a djembe and a continent of Africa.
Nice. Okay.
Yep. Or it would be like, I have a whole bunch of shirts. Another one would be like, still black. Another one would be like, yo, I'm out here eating kale and living my best life, and y'all still messing up the ozone layer. Oh yeah, I'm still black. So
Okay.
I've been thinking about this for a while. So I got a few.
Okay.
I'm gonna yield. But those are my three
Okay.
off the top.
You want ready to go next?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Mama V.
So I was just going to say arts matter. That's the polite one. But I would say, why y'all keep telling me to tuck my butt?
Ooh, yes. Ballet reference. Yes. Yes. That's a great one. Now, who gonna follow that one up? Who? Okay.
Right, yep. I'm glad I'm the first. That's a lot.
What is on your protest T-shirt?
Well, I don't think this can follow up my elder, who is a G, Dr. J, for what you just dropped, but it would say, the building is closed, school is now in session.
I like that.
Nice. Okay. All right. Last two. What you thinking?
Oh, and when in doubt, work it out. But then that's different. So
that's a whole nother, that's for college. That's the college crowd. It's a college shirt.
Okay, for sure. And the frozen position. Mid dance movement.
I take a screenshot of that. Hey.
All right. And with that, Gianni and Emma, what are you all thinking for your protest T-shirt?
Mine would be teach the B-side. And literally it would just have a whole list of just unsung heroes in Black history that we don't talk about. Wendell Scott, Victor Hugo Green, Jackie Orme, Calvin Peake, like literally all the people that we just don't talk about. And it's just going to be like just basically teach the B-side. And I'm really excited because this upcoming school year, I'm actually teaching a history class, which is called the B-side.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And Emma?
Man, it's really hard to follow all of you guys. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. But I think I'll stick with what I said earlier, and I think I'll stick with something simple. It would just say why. Try to engage some people.
Very nice. Okay.
This is the other one that's a little controversial, which would simply say, since y'all ain't offering a ride back, I'll stay here and make it great.
Very nice. Okay.
Okay. I was like, oh.
I wasn't ready, but that's dope.
My pause is because I was processing. That was good.
That is dope. All right. Well, again, thank you all. And to our viewers, this is just the beginning of more dialogue and action. And thank you again to Aysha and Mama V, Miss Vanessa, or Dr. Jackson, or Dr. J. Have to list all the aliases. To Emma, Jamaal, and Gianni for being with us tonight. And thank you to everyone watching. Our next conversation is titled Decolonizing Dance and Shifting the Rubric. And it will be in 2 weeks on Sunday, August 23rd, same time, same place. Beautiful. If you are interested in the next steps, continuing your racial education or actions you can take, here are a few of many resources to do. So we have also added a Google link to this information in the chat. So if you are protesting, please stay safe. Everyone, please take care, and we will see you August 23rd. Thank you again. Bye.